Okay, so after a long day, many different exchanges and many very, very rich debates, at least for me, I feel I'm kind of ending this day richer than I started it, and it's not over. So we are it's the divergence convergence. We are turning to our second keynote speech. Before we actually give the word to Professor Douara, whom I would really like to thank warmly for having accepted our offer to be our second keynote, and whose presentation I'm completely convinced will finally illuminate all those things we've been saying ever since yesterday. I will first give the word to President Tapie, who is the Dean of ESSEC Business School and who couldn't be with us yesterday because he was on the plane, but now he's with us, so he will say a few words about ESSEC and ESSEC Asia in particular. And then we'll turn to Arijit, who will briefly introduce Professor Douara.
Thank you, Marie-Laure, and thank you, Arijit. First, congratulations to both of you for having organized such a closed room session of intellectual stimulation. It's a pleasure, and the people you have invited here to present, and especially Professor Sassen and Professor Douara, will make our mind richer after compared than before. So really thank you for putting the effort on the intellectual content, on research, and on academic meaning here in Singapore. First, I have to apologize because I'm not sure to be perfectly fresh after two consecutive nights in the plane and 13 hours of jet lag. So I ask your indulgence for my mind clarity. I will dare to mention a little bit the theme as it can be seen very shortly from the business school dean's point of view. I think we are in a time of great paradox compared to geography. The first thing is that obviously the world is at least shared, if not flat, on all the issues related to environmental pressure and natural resources. This is obvious, and the damages that creates one toward the whole world is, of course, someone which creates a concern to others. The second is, as we believe or as we think, that it's not such a bad model to organize society as a liberal economic system. There is, I think, a very deep contradiction between the absolute free exchange of goods in free market, which is fine, and one of the consequences of that, which should be, if we push a little bit the argument, conduce to extreme ethical relativism. Why? Because every production system is grounded in a particular society, which is grounded in a particular value system, and what could be appear as unacceptable, socially speaking, in one place, could appear as quite acceptable on another. And so if we push the argument at the end of a complete free exchange market, the consequence of absolute ethical relativism will be at stake, which is something that we are not ready, most of us are not ready to accept. And when we see what happens and has happened in Afghanistan or Mali, we are there really looking at situation where absolute ethical respect of what happens there we will not be completely comfortable with that. A third point of great paradox compared geography is transformation of corporation in two ways. The first way, the first trend is that the creation of global corporation has made corporation where more than 50%, as you know, of the most powerful economic agents are today corporation and not state, and they are multinational. So the power they have is something which re-asks question of geographical differences and ability of local situation to be respected. The second point as a trend towards this mega company is that today companies are dealing more and more with what has been traditionally called public goods or common goods, because water, because energy supply, because education, even research. There are areas where the most advanced thoughts are created not in universities, nor public laboratories, but in private companies, especially in biotech or IT. The saddest creation of an innovation of Iraq war, do you know what it was? It was privatization of military air bombing. And today, you can buy military air bombing, which is interesting to think about, because of course the guys who have invested in such capacity of production of very sophisticated services will ask for some return on investment, which means they have a rational interest to blah, blah, blah. But the fact that the mega companies are involved more and more in common goods is something that, compared to the delivery of these common goods locally, which historically was more the role of states, is a trend of interest. And last, which is the kind of counter of antidote to the first one, is we have seen during the economic crisis the return of states on the stage of economic debate, because of the regulation, and because from one place to another it can be different, and because there will not be, it will be impossible to do some common regulation without cooperation between public offices. So these four items, in my mind, are ambivalent, but are shaping the landscape of how geography return, while globalization, economic globalization, is of course a shared trend. If now I mention a little bit what we are doing at ESSEC around that, I will say that we try to foster educational model where students will have a personal experience of international diversity and also personal experience of some real situation of ethical dilemma. For example, the BBA at ESSEC is mandatory quadrilingual, incorporates at least 1 year abroad. As a Master of Management, which is the famous founding program of ESSEC, the Grande École program, is a blended model between professional experience and academic learning. And it's a model where we oblige students to learn how to choose and to make choice very, very often, while providing them a lot of experiences where they take real responsibility while they are still at the university. In terms of diversity, we are extremely engaged in international affairs, I will say, and our bicontinental character with the construction of our full-fledged Singapore campus, whose groundbreaking ceremony will be next week, is one of that. But also in research, we try to provide to the students very different academic profiles who were grounded in research which had something to say about the common good. The Center for Capitalism, Globalization and Governance, Marie-Laure is the director of, is one of the examples. The Institute for Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship is another. The class of business ethics run by Laurent Bibard is another. Creation of a mandatory course for all the financial track of deontology of financial sector is another. We have a chair in philanthropy, another one in diversity and leadership, and so on and so forth. One of the last issues that we have created was the Council for Business and Society, which is a gathering of 5 business schools in the United States, China, Japan, Germany, and France, in order to address precisely questions at the interface between business and society. And if we do so, and we try to do so very humbly, because it's a very, very difficult item, of course, it's probably because of our deep conviction of a number among us that while today, now, in these years, we are using 140% every year of Earth's ability to regenerate natural resources. We are burning 140% of the planet, as the various scientists in environment are teaching to us. it's likely that we have to deeply reconsider our model. And it's difficult to reconsider our models. It's difficult because even in a business school where the style of the business schools is very shared, where we have people with a personal attachment to the school, sometimes the multidisciplinary debate can be extremely tough. And I remember some colleagues who are very, very good friends to others, and I know they are very, very good friends, saying, you know, I don't feel comfortable in pushing as far as possible the argument with my colleague, because we know that the paradigm we are grounded in are at the end impossible to reconcile. So what is very interesting for students and educational point of view, because it means that we provide to the students very different mindset and they will choose and reconstruct their own mindset from that, is a big challenge as a business school, as an institution, if we want to tackle some of the difficult issues which are today at stake, which is that our models are not sustainable. Everyone knows that, but we are still teaching a few of them, which probably will not last forever. And the last thing that I will say before giving the floor to Arijit and Professor Douara is that as business school today, I think we have a very deep ethical challenge, which is linked to the return of geography. Just because we are difficultly balancing between educational and internal incentive system, which are rather long-term driven, because some of them are, and others which are extremely instrumental, extremely linked to the immediate salary of our students and young alumni, extremely rich to measurement of research publication and tenure track processes, with a strong pressure of massively endowed US business school who set up the level, more or less, the level of salary of academics around the world. And when you mix all that, the trend of the system is to be massively conservative, while the urgency of the world will be that we will be innovators. And if we are so happy today to welcome people like Professor Sasson, who is Professor of Sociology, and Professor Douara, who is Professor of Humanities, and others, it is because we need, within the business school framework model, both in research and education, we desperately need input from other disciplines. Because if we are not able to incorporate this long-term view, I think that our political legitimacy will disappear in the next years to come. Thank you for your presence.